On this week's episode of the podcast, I am joined by our Director of Operations, Shannon Youssefi, and we go step by step through our listing checklist. We do a 31-step listing checklist. So if you are looking to take on more listings, improve how you do your listings, or just want to make sure things don't get lost in the minutia, you have to watch this episode. That's this week on the Real Estate Success, the Whissel Beer podcast. Welcome to Real Estate Success, the Whissel Beer podcast. I am your host, Bryan. I am joined by our Director of Operations here as my special co-host this week, Shannon Youssefi. I'm sorry. Shannon Youssefi. Shannon, welcome to the podcast, Ann.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Now, Shannon has been on the podcast several times before talking about virtual assistants. She's been on the podcast talking about, what was the last one you did? You just talked about it.
Contract mistakes that cost you money.
Contract mistakes. Now she's on, as the Director of Operations, she oversees all of this. You oversee our listing coordination team, our transaction coordination team. You oversee literally from, I think we said at our leadership, from contract, or from, what is it? Not contract. You don't like the word contract. From contract to close.
Agreement to close.
Agreement to close. Your department handles all of that. Yeah. Today, we're going to talk about something that is very sexy, very unique, very exciting, groundbreaking. We're going to be talking about checklists, to-do lists. It's going to blow your mind. But most specifically, we're going to be talking about, as we talk about what you need in a checklist, all that's important to prove the fact. We're going to go step by step to the main points of our listing checklist. So if you are an agent that takes on listings, if you have a listing coordinator or a listing manager, if you're a new agent and want to take on listing, you go, I just don't know what to do when I get a listing. This podcast is going to be for you. We're going to break down step by step things that apply to everyone. And now this is obviously something you can say, well, step 17 doesn't apply. Sure. Or actually, I want to add 3 steps. Sure, absolutely. This is going to give you a baseline level of what to get started with. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So before we get started, like I said, you're listening to the Real Estate Success, the Whissel Beer podcast. Please subscribe to this if you are listening. That does us a lot of good. That way you also can get updated on things that, as we come out with these weekly episodes, you will get notified every week about the new podcast we put out. And we do this, we mix in different co-hosts. Kyle and I talk about things always built to help real estate professionals build their business. You can also go to thewhisselway.com, thewhisselway.com. On there, you can join our Facebook group, or subscribe to our YouTube channel, join our referral network. As people leave San Diego and need somewhere to go, we need to send them to an agent. That could be you. You can join our weekly email newsletter. You can learn more about our Media Mayor Mastermind course. This is the course Kyle and I built to break down step by step exactly what you should do and how you should do it to build content in your community to help you become the digital mayor of your town. All of that is on thewhisselway.com. Did I miss anything, Tom? No. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But he said, no, we're good with it. So, Shannon, let's talk about checklists overall here. Why do we need a checklist?
Okay, so this is something that I feel like it seems like a really basic thing, right? It's not something that we really talk about all that much because I think it's become such a integral part of our business in general here at Whissel that I don't think we really talk about it a whole lot because we have a lot of them really established. But particularly for like newer agents or like solo agents that don't have the team that provides a lot of structure and support for you, having a checklist for each of like the core parts of your business is like such a game changer in helping you like duplicate your results, right? So like every time you go on a listing appointment, if you have a checklist for like, here's the things I need to do to be prepared for that appointment, right? I need to do the CMA, I need to draft the listing agreement and like have that ready to go so that you could just say sign here, right? Like if you don't have that listing agreement done and prepped and printed beforehand, like it's really hard to get them to say, okay, sign here and get them to sign on the dotted line in that moment when they're agreeing to work with you, right? Yep. So like we have basically a checklist for each kind of important product. Like if it's something that you do more than once in your business, you should have a checklist for it, right? Whether that be, going on an appointment, on a seller appointment, or a buyer showing or a buyer consultation appointment, right? Like all of those pieces should have a checklist to them so that way you can, when you're prepared, you're able to close better is a big reason why they matter, right? But also it's, increasing your own efficiency and scalability, right? Like whether you're a solo agent that has no one helping you at all and you're doing all the work yourself, or when you get to that point, like if you're a 30 deal per year agent, you want to get to 50, you're going to have a couple of systems to be able to really get you to that next level of business and really get you to the next kind of, level. So that also, it's less stressful when you have a checklist that tells you, okay, I need to send the listing agreement out for signature to the broker, whatever part of the process it might be. It's less stressful when you don't feel like you're reinventing the wheel every single time. Then you're like, oh, did I drop the ball on this? Blah, blah, blah. It gets hard to manage those things, right?
I want to jump in real quick here. I just talked to Tom and Chad, my team, and we have processes that we've built kind of here and there. But what's hard is sometimes it's like, oh, we forgot to do this. Well, who is responsible? I don't know. You said just you guys, and I'm part of you guys. And so not only will it help you not forget things, but it also helps you delegate things and say, you are responsible for this. We do EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, and they say if two people are responsible, no one's responsible. Yep. So it says this one person is responsible for this one part of this process, and we can hold people accountable to that. And like you said, we'll do things time and time again. And I feel like we have a good team. I feel like we have good processes. But after we talked about this and after we talked at annual, I realized we can be much more scaled in. And so that way when something happens, we go, oh, this is the process. Let's go. It's not hard. It's not scary. We're not running behind. It's just, this is what we do.
Exactly. It's a list that you just follow regardless of the situation, right? So like that's something that, at least in my own department with listing and transaction management, we have, a list of tasks that has to get done every single time we take a listing or every time we have a new escrow, right? And it doesn't matter who's doing it. Like, I mean, we do have each task is like assigned to the transaction manager or like their VA that's assisting them, right? But like it gives a lot of clarity to who's doing what, so you can have a better idea of people's workloads, but also it makes it a lot more plug and play. Like let's say, for example, my listing coordinator is out on vacation, right? And I need to cover for her, or maybe someone else on the team is covering for her. Like whoever's covering can see, okay, here, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do that. And we have like instructions for each step of that process, right? So like it's really, really important when you have multiple people working on the process. But if we're looking at like a more solo agent that doesn't have that leverage, doesn't have someone working for them, it's also helpful because as salespeople, we tend to be very, I don't know what you want to call it, scatterbrained, I guess. That's how I think of myself.
Let's just say high D's or high I's aren't usually the ones that are the best at contracts in terms of disc profile. It's let's get shit done, let's move forward. That stuff, the big picture stuff is the most important. The little details here and there usually are things that get either forgotten or under prioritized.
Right, exactly. And like I'm naturally very much that way, right? Like I'm very much more of a people person. Like all those getting bogged down on all those little details is not something that is a natural tendency of mine. I had to learn how to be that way out of necessity, right? And so this is a really good way to make sure that you can't screw things up for yourself. If you have a checklist that you follow every single time you go on an appointment or every single time you sign a new listing, it protects you from yourself so that you can make sure you're doing the same thing and you're not dropping the ball on any step of that process. And also, and this is really the most important reason to have a checklist, is that you're making sure that you have a really, really great experience for your customer, for your client every single time. It creates consistency in your business. It creates consistency in the customer experience. And then that way, like if you're guiding them along each step of the way because you have a checklist that tells you what to do, like they're going to be a lot happier. And because it doesn't feel like you're just kind of, flying by the seat of your pants type thing, right?
So we have one of the things that I think we're really good at, we love to overcomplicate things. We love to have high-tech solutions. I bet you Elon Musk is going to be calling us when he's like, hey, I need to build a checklist for SpaceX. We're really good at overcomplicating it. Tell us about kind of systems that you have to have in order to do something like this.
So honestly, I'm very much so of the mindset that like it does not need to be a high-tech thing. Like I know some of the most productive teams in the entire industry are actually more on the low-tech side. There are people that close thousands of deals a year and all their checklists are literally on paper.
Sure.
And like, it doesn't matter if it's on paper. I mean, I probably wouldn't suggest it because it's not, mobile and things like that. But like, if that's what works for you, if that's your jam, do it on paper and that's totally fine. Or maybe it's like a checklist in Evernote if that's what you use, right? The easiest way is to plug into the systems that you already have. So like, for example, if your broker uses like SkySlope for compliance, if you create a checklist of those tasks that need to get done for yourself in SkySlope, because that's already where you're using that's like you're already using that system, right? Like you don't need to go out and reinvent the wheel. Now, for us and for our business and the way that we have things set up because of the size of our team, we have a separate like transaction management system that we use, and that's where all of these tasks live.
Yep.
And we change them, we update them, we reorder them, we get rid of stuff if it doesn't make sense anymore. We add things as we add stuff to that process, but it does not need to be, I would say like less is more on that. And you can always like, I feel like something that kind of holds people back is like figuring out the tech side of stuff. Like, don't worry about that. Just get started. Like action's better than perfection when it comes to this. You over time will like really button up your process and make it like a really solid thing that you're doing every single time. But you have to start somewhere and it's not gonna be perfect the first time around. And if it's on paper, if it's on Evernote, if it's on your notes app on your iPhone, like it doesn't matter where you're getting it from. Just make sure that it's somewhere that you're going to actually use it, and that it's accessible for whoever needs it.
Yeah. So I mean, if you want, you said some things there. You could use Google Docs. You could literally write it down, scan it, and print it.
Yep.
You can use things like Trello, Asana. We use Monday.com for a lot of things. You can use Google Sheets. I mean, what you have, use what you have. I just named a bunch of things, and if you're like, I've never heard of any of those, don't use them. If you're like, oh, I have Trello. I didn't know I could do that. That's how we started with this, is using Trello. So, okay, now we know why. Everyone's like, cool. Whether you're a director of operations who manages hundreds of transactions, 100 agents, whether it's a media team member who manages who they're what they do every time we get a review, whether you're a solo agent and you're saying, okay, this is what I do for buyers, this is what I do and we have this for we call them our grab and go packets. We have literally a checklist that we print out that agents can check off for when they're going on buyer presentations and listing presentations. Don't overwhelm yourself with all the checklists you can do. Start with the ones that you're using the most, and you probably already have it built in your head, and just add it in, and then you can audit it and go, oh, I totally forgot this, or oh, I should do this. It's a really easy way to grow into it. So now that we have that, let's go into very specific. I want to talk about, again, we can't go over 10,000 checklists that we have.
Right.
But I want to talk about the listing checklist. This is great because there's a lot of little moving pieces. This is something that some agents do all the time. But with all the little pieces and their high D's or high I's and the disc profile, and they're thinking high picture, a lot of these things can get missed. Or this is really great if you're an agent that does 1 or 2 listings a year. And it's easy to forget all these little things. And so why we wanted to start with this one is give you guys a baseline. Now, I give you absolute authority, permission to say, I hate number 7. I'm not going to include it. Don't include it. I don't care. I give you absolute authority to say, you only have 29 things on here. It should be 99 things. Go ahead. I just want to give you a baseline so that way you're not going, yes, I will do this checklist. Step 1, I don't know what to do. So that's where we're going into that with this. And do you know how many are on here? I know we took some things out that are very, very specific to us, not because we're trying to hide it, just because it doesn't make sense if you're not using the 9 systems that we use, right? FUB connecting to CSU, connecting to OCC in the widget. Maybe that doesn't make sense, so we don't want to spend time on it.
Yeah, so I really boiled this down to like the real basic things that are pretty universal across like all markets, all brokerages, it's really universal kind of across the board for everybody. This is definitely a pared down version of what we do. Like, very much pared down. But yeah, so like the examples are like something you're going to do every time you get a new listing, right? You get that listing agreement signed by the seller. You're going to make sure that you have the agreement actually signed is the first one, right?
Receipt, and also give them a copy.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. We'll actually get to that in a second one.
Okay.
And then also going over like the key dates with the sellers.
So 1, receive the listing agreement. 2, review key dates.
Yes. So that's going to be like, when you plan on doing the photo shoot, when do you actually want to hit the market? Just making sure you guys are on the same page with that, right? Mm-hmm. Adding those dates to your own calendar, which I think is something that most agents probably don't do and probably should do.
Especially if you have multiple transactions going on, adding it to your calendar so that way you know when it's supposed to go live, and that way they're not calling you up the day after, be like, it was supposed to go live yesterday. Yep,
exactly. Sending out an intro email to the sellers with that listing agreement attached, because I think most states have this, but like in California, to have a valid listing agreement, you have to have given the sellers a copy of that listing agreement, right? Mm-hmm. And also just sending them an intro email, whether that's your listing coordinator that sends it and she kind of introduces herself, lets the sellers know who she is, what she's going to do, or you just send it and you're like, hey, I'm super excited to work with you. Here's the listing agreement we have attached, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And then also like part of the nice thing with having a checklist like this is you can kind of see holes in your own process too. So if you have a checklist item that says send this email, do you have a template for it? Probably not. If you're just creating your checklists right now, like if this is a new thing for you, you probably don't have an email template, right? Mm-hmm. So that tells you, okay, if there's an email that needs to get sent as part of your checklist, okay, cool. Then you can kind of dive, and it helps you button up all parts of the process a lot better and easier, and it just gives you kind of some guidance on that, right?
Yeah, don't reinvent the wheel.
Exactly. Yep. Sending an intro text to the sellers. We always do texting as well as email because that's where most people prefer to communicate. Mm-hmm. Creating the listing in like SkySlope or wherever your brokerage uses, like whatever compliance software your brokerage uses. So creating it there and uploading all those documents for compliance because you got to follow the rules of your broker, of course, always. Yep. Scheduling staging. And updating the sellers on the status of it, right? Because that's one thing that I think gets missed quite a bit. Like you might be doing all these things, right? But if you're not actively like communicating those with your clients, they don't think you're doing anything, and then they're frustrated with you, right? So like sending out those updates to the sellers, we have that as a part of our checklist too. So it's like, hey, FYI, I scheduled with so-and-so, they're going to be there on this day, whatever it is, especially if it's like a vacant property, they have no clue what's going on because they're not at the property, right? Yep. Scheduling any like pre-listing inspections. So like here in San Diego, we do termite inspections on every single property when we take that listing. Other markets have other things. It doesn't really matter. But if there's any inspections that you guys do normally, that's something to have on your checklist. Ordering title, getting a copy of the keys from the sellers. That's a big one because that's one that causes people to scramble a lot of times, mm-hmm. At least in my experience, right? Yep. Hanging the lockbox. Right? And whether that's you going out there to the property or maybe you have something set up with your photographer where they hang the lockbox during that photo shoot. If that's the case, awesome. Like use them as like leverage to put some more time back in your day. Yep. But just making sure the lockbox gets there basically is what we have on our checklist.
Yeah. And we said this earlier, but I want to reiterate, this isn't something that you have to do. You don't have to do all of these things. All of these things need to get done. Now, and Shannon used a word that's one of our favorite words here, is leverage. Whether that's you're utilizing a photographer that can do that, whether it's you're utilizing your team, junior agent, your assistant, virtual assistant, they can't hang a lockbox, but right, for some of these things, TC, like who can you use to help you do more business, more deals? Who can, like, and who can you utilize their core competency, right? You're better, like I wouldn't have, and I love our TC department, but I wouldn't have them negotiating deals. That's not what they're great at. They're great at making sure all these things get dialed in. You're great at negotiating deals. Let them negotiate their stuff. So make sure you give the tasks to the right person for the job.
Yeah, definitely. Collecting all the information for the MLS. That's another one on there. Scheduling the photo shoot. sending instructions to the sellers that tell them like how to prep for the photo shoot. Actually, this is one of my favorite parts of our checklist. We have a really cool video that you and Tom had done that like you guys are like the sellers in that one, I think. And it's really great. Like it just kind of walks them through how to get their house ready, you know, opening up the blinds, do this, blah, blah, blah. That's like one of my favorite videos that we've ever done.
That's probably the best we've ever done.
Yeah, anybody, like I feel like it's a video worth checking out. I'm sure it's on our YouTube channel or something somewhere. Yeah. Okay, sending the property disclosures for the sellers for them to complete, because you're going to need those once we open escrow, right? And the sooner you get them, the less you have to scramble later, and the less stress the sellers will be later. Getting all the HOA info, if there is one, right? And like this is part of the checklist is that like not everything's going to apply every single time, right?
Of course.
So if there's no HOA on the next listing you take, you just check that off. Like, cool, you could skip that step, right? But that way you don't drop the ball on getting it if it does apply, right? Like that's kind of how we have everything structured, where we put everything in the checklist and then we check off the things that don't apply for that listing, for that transaction. But that way we for sure don't miss those steps just because they don't apply 100% of the time. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Getting the solar information if the property has solar. Ordering the for sale sign. That's one that you can definitely have a lot of leverage on, by the way. Like if you don't have a sign company doing that, you are wasting your time. It's not a great use of your time. And it's a total pain in the butt to handle that. It's a very low cost thing compared to how much it would cost you to go out and install a sign yourself. Get a sign company that does it. They'll hold the signs for you. It's great.
Yeah, and get a sign company. Like that way you don't have to worry about breaking a sprinkler line or where the gas line is or the sign fell over or you didn't do it or the sign, like all these things that the sign company, when you do it in mass, it's fine. They just have 1,000 signposts, and if one breaks, you're fine. But if you have one signpost and it breaks or you get another listing, you're scrambling. So yes.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a big one. Also, shout out to California Signs, who is our sign company, and they are incredible. Like they're so on top of their game. Just want to plug them real quick while I have the opportunity.
Which we wouldn't have plugged previous sign companies. We don't plug everyone that we use. We use them as a transition from one that we were running into issues.
Not a great experience. Yeah, we had quite a few issues with the last one, so our new one's really great. Getting the description of the property, I would also recommend ChatGPT for that. Lots of people do that nowadays. It's a lot easier.
Make sure you check your work.
Yeah, no kidding.
Here's a little hack for this. What I like to do is I did this for one of our luxury listings, is I said, this is the information about it. And I just bullet pointed. I called the agent and said, give me some bullet points. This. Okay, it's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, this many square feet. Oh, it's close to the whatever, right? I did. And then I said, this is information about the property. I want you to make a property description that's this many characters. Here's one that I want you to mimic off of the same style and the tone. And I looked at a previous listing description that we had done that we really liked. And so now it used the same tone and the feel and the flowery language and the blah, 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 using the new bullet points. It was really good.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really great way to, because I feel like everybody kind of struggles with that to a certain extent. Also, coordinating with the sellers for their open houses before you actually hit the market, right? Like making sure they know on Saturday when we have that premiere weekend, like here's what we're going to do. Here's the open house times. We're going to try to get everybody in there at that time so that we can kind of create that frenzy. Like all those, going over all those step by step, that's what's going to give your clients a really good experience when working with you. When you make sure that you have all these things buttoned up as they come up, it makes it a much more repeatable process, and it makes sure that your clients are like, oh, wow, okay, like, you know, Bryan's super proactive and he's making sure we have the open house dialed in beforehand, right? Like all those things. It makes you look good, right?
Yep.
Let's see what else. Like, you know, inputting the listing onto the MLS.
Well, actually, before you did that, you have one on here that at first I thought was kind of silly, but then I was like, oh, I actually really like this. You have earlier schedule photo shoot. Here you have receive photos.
Yes.
Which is like, duh. But when you, right, so at first I was like, duh. But like when you have so many things going on, especially if you're dealing with multiple listings, and say you're outsourcing, maybe you're using a new photography company, maybe they sent it to you in an email and you never saw it, and now you're like, it needs to go live at 5 o'clock on a Friday night, and you're like, I can't find the photos, and the listing company's off for the day, or the photo company, like,
yeah.
It's just little things like, well, duh, I get it in the email. but maybe you didn't get it in the email and you need to go live on the MLS in 2 days. Now you have time to communicate. So I love that you included that, even though at first I was like, this is a dumb thing, but I think it's really valuable.
Yeah, well, getting them back. And then also actually kind of part of that like checklist item that we train people on for our team is like, okay, you receive the photos, but you also need to be looking at them and seeing, okay, which ones, like if they send you 50 photos, do you really want 50? Probably not. Less is a little bit more that's probably too many. And so paring it down to like the ones that you do want to use, right? Or like one of the things that we do on our team is our agents review the photos first and let the listing coordinator know that, hey, I want to use this one as the main one and I don't want, photos 20, 25, 30, whatever, right? Like whatever they don't want. And then that way we're not having to adjust it later and scrambling later when the sellers suddenly see that their house went on the market and they're like, I don't like this picture, right? And they're not happy.
Or a photo or two was missed.
Yeah.
Oh, the seller really wanted their grand staircase. Or you did a drone shot, but you shot it from the wrong way, and I wanted you to show the lake that's a mile away, and you showed the school. So this gives you time before it goes on the MLS to say, hey, photographer, I need you to go out and do a reshoot, and whether it's a reshoot fee or not, whatever, it doesn't matter. I need this photo. I need these. Can you shoot this from a different angle? Rather than, again, Friday at 5 o'clock, it's supposed to go on the MLS, and you realize they didn't get any photos of the backyard. That's kind of a big deal. Whatever, right? Like,
or they got them and they didn't send them to me or something. Like things like that happen.
Receive and QC photos.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And so, inputting the listing on the MLS, activating it on the MLS. The next thing we do
and these are broken up into different things because they can be different people that do it. You could have your listing team input it, and you want that control, so you still want to hit the activate. And that way you can check it. So I like these as different ones as well. Yep,
exactly. Setting up showing time or whatever service you use to coordinate showings on your listings. I do recommend most MLSs have some type of showing service that's included, at least a free version of it, and it will literally change your life. That might be a good widget now that I think about it. It will change your life. It's so much easier to keep track. Like if you have everybody texting you saying, oh, I want to show it at this time, and then you have to relay that to the sellers, and then you have to keep track of all those. It's so much coordinating that's so unnecessary. If you can have a system that does it, particularly one that is provided for free from your MLS, like do it. It will be worth it 100% of the time. It's going to make your life so much easier. So setting that up on showing time, sending the link to the sellers. So we send it to them and we're like, hey, congrats, your house is on the market. Like, here's a link to view it. Then they can see, all the pictures. We do ask them to review all the details for accuracy, just to make sure we didn't, screw something up because, you do enough business. Sometimes you hit the wrong key or whatever. We want to make sure that we have, if it's hardwood versus wood laminate, we want to make sure we have it accurate in there so that we're not we're not kind of misrepresenting that, I guess, to a buyer. So we ask the sellers to review it. A lot of times they'll sometimes be like, oh, actually, could you mention this also? Like, that's something that I forgot I wanted to add in there. Like, they'll sometimes give us feedback. For the most part, though, most of the sellers don't. They're just like, oh, yay, the pictures look great. Like, thanks so much. Like, they're just excited at that point.
Again, it's another touch point for you to continue to, because with a buyer, you're working with them every day. You see them, you're communicating almost every day. With a seller, it can be very easy to sign the listing and then present offers. And they're like, and then they see how much they're paying and they go, what did I do? Why did I pay you for this? Especially if they're buying and they're working with an agent. Maybe it's a different agent because they're moving out of state and they're talking with them every day. They say, I'm paying them less than I'm not even paying. Well, I won't talk about that. But I'm paying you X amount of dollars and I've only talked to you 2 times. I talked to this other agent 400 times a day.
Yeah. So, and that's actually the number one complaint that most sellers have about their agent is like that they just feel like they're just not working. They're not doing anything. And most of the time we are doing something. We're just not good about communicating that with them. Like the only thing worse than a bad update is no update at all, right? So like even if you're telling them, hey, like the listing, we're still waiting on the pictures to get back. We were supposed to have them today, but we don't have them yet. It looks like we're not going to be hitting the market until tomorrow. Like the worst thing you could do is not say anything at all, right? But like, or whether it's a problem, like that's better than just crickets, and then they're left wondering, like, what's going on? Like, I don't know what the status of things are. Like, if they feel like they're in the dark, they assume you're not doing anything, and that's usually not the case, right? Correct. So that's an important one because that really provides, like, the value that they're expecting, and making sure you're proactively communicating the things you're doing for them and the work you're doing for them.
Okay.
Next thing I have is creating like property flyers. So like one thing that we're really big on is every listing that we take should bring leads into the team, right? Or into the agent, the listing agent, if that's how you structure things, right? But listings bring leads. So like you want to make sure that you're doing the marketing pieces so that you're bringing in buyer leads, and maybe they don't buy that house, but you find them another one, right? Like it's a natural way to leverage and get more clients. So we do like property flyers, for example, that we put like in the yard sign, in a little brochure box thing. So we do that on every single listing that we take. So that's an item on our checklist to make sure that that gets done, is getting those property flyers, put together, printed out. Maybe there's two different people that do that. So one person creates them, one person like brings them to the property. It doesn't really matter, but making sure that those got delivered. And actually, I think I have those. Yeah, I have creating the property flyer and I have delivering the property flyer separately, because for our team, it's two different people that do it.
And it could be third if it's one person. We have our international team member create it, then one can print it, and then one can deliver it. So break it down to who it does. So it's not like. And I was just talking to Tom about this. I don't want to say, Chad, you didn't do your job. You didn't deliver the property flyers. And he goes, well, they never got printed. And then I say, Heather, you didn't do your job. You didn't do it. Well, then I never got design. And so that way you can make sure everyone is accountable.
Yes. Cool. Yeah. That's something that we've structured our checklist all that way, where it's like, if it's a different person that's doing, like if it's one kind of big step, but like multiple steps in it, like having them separated by who's doing them, because that way it's very easy to know where the hole in the process is, right? And then also sending out another marketing piece that we do on all our listings is we send out like a letter to the nearest 100 neighbors saying that, hey, so-and-so just listed their house, asking if they know anybody that wants to move into the neighborhood. So we send out those on every single listing that we take. So that's one of the things that we do on all of them. And then also running like the social media ad campaigns and stuff for that listing, so that we're making sure we're reaching the most amount of people possible.
So we've got 31 things on this checklist. I already put on my list to send it to our graphic designer. We'll make this pretty, and we'll be able to share this out. We'll probably put it in our Facebook groups. So make sure you're joining the Facebook group. Go to thewhisselway.com. Shannon, this was a lot. Thank you so much. Before we get into our Whissel widget of the week, if you got value out of this, please write us a review. This would mean the world to us, just like it means a lot to you when your clients write a review. Write us a review and let us know, or let other people know that you got value out of it. If you heard this and thought, oh, my TC or my listing coordinator, my listing manager, I want to send this to them so that way they know what the Whissel team is doing. And again, she or he may look at this and go, yeah, we already do all that. Cool, problem solved. Send this to a new agent that's getting started. Send this to an experienced agent, especially those that are the drivers or the high people. Like, for example, I could send this to your mom, who's an agent on the team, loves talking with people. The details get lost sometimes. Yes. So having a checklist like this, again, if you think of someone that this can add value to, please share this with them. I'd appreciate that. And finally, you can go to thewhisselway.com. This has information about, like I said, our Facebook group, YouTube channel, our referral network, our weekly newsletter, our video creation course. And I think I've been adding some things. I just forget. Thewhisselway.com. It's really cool if you want to grow your business.
I think have a checklist for that.
I know.
Kyle, the things to mention.
Kyle always says this, and he does it really well. And I think I just added a few things, like our social media challenge I think I put on there, or I was going to. I don't remember. But I should have a checklist. I need to build lots of checklists. All right. As we end the podcast, let's talk about our Whissel widget of the week. This is something that we use in our life, in our business, that saves us time, makes us more money, or just lets us have a little more fun. What do you have for us, Shannon?
So my widget of the week is, I probably talked about this before, but I'm repeating myself if I have, because it's worth repeating, is open to close, which is what we use for our transaction management system, our listing and transaction management system. It's where all of the stuff for everything from agreement to close is all tracked. It's the main system that our team works out of to make sure that each of these checklist items are actually getting done. and making sure that, that emails get sent out from it. It takes everything for that transaction and it like builds itself basically. So you just tell the system, okay, when I check off this task, I want it to send this email out, right? And then you set up the email template, and then it just like all your team has to do is literally hit a button, look at the email, and then hit send, and it's like all pre-built and it creates it for you. It's really, really cool. Like scaling your business, this is a huge, huge, huge lift for us. It solves so many problems for us. So yeah, open to close is where it's at.
Now, if you're a solo agent and you want to be a solo agent forever, maybe this is a system that's probably a little too complicated.
Probably.
That being said, if you're even if you're a solo agent now, but you go, I am going to grow a team. I want to grow 10 agents, 20 agents, 30 agents, 100 agents, and you want to build for the future, open to close is absolutely one of those things that you can build into, utilize more and more and more of it. If that's your plan, I wouldn't, if that is your plan, I would not say start with something simple and then do the next process, the next process, the next process, build into it and grow into it if that's the direction that you know you're going. Mine is very the opposite. It's very simplistic. It's very free. It's not something I knew about until this year. And since I've known about it, it's made this tool massively more valuable to me. And so within Google Sheets, you have the ability to add filters. And what that is, if you click on the very top left, just Google how to do filters if you want to see how to do it. You're going to want to see it anyways. But what it'll allow you to do is it'll look at everything in that column. You can probably do rows, I don't know. In that column, that's the vertical columns, and you can say, hey, I want to see only everything in here that is, you can choose. I want to see everything in here that has a yes. So then if you're having an RSVP like we just did for an event, you have the names on one side. Did they RSVP? Yes, no, or blank. I want to see all the yeses. You can click the filter button and see all the yeses. It hides everything else. I use it in my marketing scorecard. I say, hey, I want to see all the leads created in November, and I can do that. It doesn't work well if you're like, I want to see all the people with the last name A that starts with A. It doesn't work that way. But if you're like, I want to see everyone that registered with the last name Smith because they registered 38 people, I need to see what's going on there, you can do it that way as well. But literally just adding a filter on your columns for Google Sheets has made that tool massively more valuable and a lot. It's annoying because I'm like, I use Monday for everything. And now the more and more I learn about Google Sheets, I'm like, oh, it's way better.
It's really cool. Yeah.
And it's free. So I'm a big fan of Google Sheets and the filter function. That is it for this episode of the Real Estate Success, the Whissel Way podcast. I'm Bryan Kochi, joined by Shannon Youssefi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Wait. Before you leave, I want to share some more tips and tricks that we're using in our business to take it to that next level. Just click right here. And don't forget to subscribe. Click right here.